Stims will save your life in Escape from Tarkov. Not only that, they can single-handedly turn around an entire firefight in your favor. For this reason, it is very important to have a stim case in your secure container as soon as you can. So you can get a stim case, just quickly to cover it, out of the task Out of Curiosity with Therapist. You can find them in marked rooms. You could buy one off the flea. They're pretty expensive. There's also a barter at Loyalty Level 4 Therapist. But on top of the stim case, what is equally important is what you put in the stim case. The best part is you don't even need to fill it, so you can have a couple extra slots for stims you find in raid to get a little extra money out of your raids, even if you die. Now for me, I run 6 stims most of the time, but 3 of those are ones I use constantly. Now those 3 stims I suggest for every player as a must, though I think all 6 are important, and there's even use for some others for specific things depending on what you're doing. So as you can see, these are the stims that I keep in my injector case here. Proptial, SJ6, M.U.L.E, Trimadol, eTG-C, or green stim as a lot of us call it, and then the Perfotoran blue blood, which is a new stim with 13. But I have them all up here along with an extra kind of bonus that I run more frequently than others, just to point out. So first off is the Proptial. This is a first must-have. This is one that I recommend, to the point to where I even run this in my kits, which I don't have one there now, so it kind of looks weird. But I run these in my kits, even outside, hotkeyed, for my like emergency pain pill. If I get into a fight or I get hit out in the open and I need to pain and I'm not, that's what it's there for. But even when it's there, I keep one in my injector case. And the reason is what it does. So not only does it remove pain for 240 seconds or 4 minutes, it also regenerates health. Now it does 1 tick a second for a total of 300 for 300 health. And this isn't going to like heal you through a firefight. It'll give you a couple extra points, obviously. But where it comes in really handy is if you're in cover, you're screwed up, you hit a Proptial, and you can start serving black limbs, repairing those, and heal damaged parts of your body while you're doing that, or you're loading mags, or eating, or doing anything else. It's a passive healing, so you can do multiple things at once and get back into the fight faster. Now, on top of that, it does give you metabolism, health, vitality, as bonuses, but they're not hugely important. Health does help a little bit with some of the food stuff, but other than that, the pain and the regeneration are the 2 biggest things. Now after this, the second most used stim I have now is the blue blood, and I use this a lot. I was never a big user of Zagustins. I had them just in case, but I've gotten into where I use these more frequently now than I have in previously wiped, specifically because of how good this stim is. So this stim, not only does it stop all bleeds, you could have 6 bleeds across all your different limbs. You hit this stim, they all go away. And then on top of that, it'll add 1.5 health per second for 60 seconds. So this is just another boost to getting back in the fight and saving your life, which it has for me in some cases a lot closer than I care to admit. Holy fucking 4 hit points, dude. Now, as a bonus, it also removes toxication, radiation exposure, and an antidote, which is the cultist knife poison. Toxication and radiation don't do anything yet, but they will eventually, which means this stim is going to have just that much more value to keep in your secure container as we further progress in the game and some of the stuff gets added. Now, after this, the most other frequent stim I use is the SJ6. This is kind of a stim that just makes you be able to run a long ways, and it usually gets used in conjunction with others, but sometimes I'll just use, there's times I just use the SJ6 versus hitting a Trimadol or even the 3BTG occasionally, which some other people do as well. And its stamina recovery is +2, and this doesn't just your running stamina, it's also your arm stamina. So this stim actually has a ton of versatility in what it can do. Not only can it be used to get you out of fights, it can be used to get you into fights. If you're running down PMCs or trying to get into some action, maybe you're trying to get to loot before anybody else. And then with the arm stamina thing, some tasks like Test Drive, where you're holding an M1A with a Reaper on it and your stamina burns quickly, or Shooterborn in Heaven, or Tarkov Shooter, with some of these weapons where your arm stamina is always a problem. The SJ6 not only lets you hold your ADS longer, when you come out of ADS, your stamina regenerates that much faster. So it does have a lot of other uses aside from just running, which is why it gets used a lot by me. Now, moving on to the next stim that gets used the most frequently by me, and these are the rest of the ones in my secure containers. The green stim, as we call it, or the eTG. Now, this one is a fix yourself up, get yourself back in the fight right away kind of stim. I tend to use it more as a solo than as a squad. because as a solo, let's say you're fighting a 2-man, you get into a fight with a guy and you kill him, but he gets a lot of good shots on you, you're really injured, you can hit this stim and be back up to full health, or at least as full as you can be with any black limbs, by the time his teammate starts to push you if they're not right there. Sometimes I will even throw a grenade to push a guy off after I kill his buddy, hit the green stim, maybe even get a serve off or a CMS off to fix a limb, which it'll get healed and I don't ever have to do any healing and I can be ready to fight again pretty quickly. So it's kind of a no shit stim. It works really well. Just make sure that if you're using it, you find food or you have food readily available, because it does go right through your energy pretty quickly, and you're going to be hungry right after using it, though it does save your life many times, or at least it has for me. Now, the Trimadol is a new one they added with patch 13. I use it in conjunction with the SJ6 a lot because of its stamina recovery. So yes, it does give you endurance and strength and attention and stress resistance, but the big one is a stamina recovery. So +3 in conjunction with the +2 from SJ6 is actually regenerating faster than you can burn it running. So if you're running and you jump and keep running, you will actually regenerate health or stamina back up. Sorry, not health. So for 3 minutes, which is how long this Trimadol lasts, you can run non-stop. So you can cover huge portions of maps, some maps entirely, with a Trimadol and an SJ6. So it can be used to get out of fights. Like if you get ambushed by 3 players and you just want to run the hell away, they will not be able to keep up with you with this stim. You'll leave them in the dust. I've used it to get into fights. Like when I was doing capture and outpost on Shoreline, I would hit these 2 stims to get down there before anybody else and be set up. You can use it to get to Sawmill, things like that. It's also good for like end of raids. Sometimes I will cut the timer too close and I'll be like 5 minutes before I realize it and I need to get to extract. And with these 2 stims, you can get to almost any extract on any map within 2 to 3 minutes. So even if you're almost out of time, this will get you there safely with a little bit extra time to spare to extract and not get that MIA. Now, the last stim that we keep in here that we haven't talked about yet that I always keep in my container is the M.U.L.E. And this is just kind of a loot lord stim, if you will. You're going to pick up a bunch of gear and you're super heavy, but you still want to get out of raid with it stim. What it does is it reduces your weight limit by 50%. Or increases it, sorry. It increases the weight limit by 50%, or so you can carry that much more gear and still walk, still run, and still regenerate while walking. It pushes all of those bars higher. So when you hit this stim and you're way overweight, you're still overweight, you're still going to stomp around, you're still going to be sluggish with inertia, but the big point is you'll be able to regenerate by walking at least most of the way. If you get really heavy, you won't be able to. So this is just kind of at the end of the raid to help you get out with all that extra loot. Just keep in mind that not only does it increase how much damage you take, except the head, obviously, it increases it by 9% here. I don't know if that's because of my immunity or if it got moved from 10 to 9, whatever. It also takes away health. So it's going to burn 0.1 health a second for 900 seconds. So every 10 seconds, you're going to lose 1 health. So a lot of times when I use this, I'll also hit a Proptial just so I don't have to worry about losing 2 or 3 health on my way out, especially if you run into a scav or something like that. Now, one other stim that I don't always have in my injector, but I do from time to time, is the Meldonin. This is kind of like a PvP stim. If I'm going on factory, or if I know I'm going to be rushing dorms and fighting PvP or other maps and focusing PvP, a lot of times I'll use this stim because it does reduce how much damage you take by 10%, which doesn't sound like a ton, but there's a few edge cases out there where it'll increase how many bullets it takes to kill you by a full bullet, especially if you're absorbing damage or it's on the lower end of bullets like 855A1 at a distance, some of the 545 bullets, and 9mm bullets like that. It'll make it, or shotgun. It has a huge effect on shotguns as well, as far as reducing how much damage they actually do to you. Now, it does give you strength and endurance, which is nice, and some stamina recovery, though not a lot, but it does absolutely nuke your hydration and your energy. So make sure if you're using this, if it's in your container, you also have food and water with you because you will need them. Now, we'll go through the rest of these stims, but quick reminder, if you're enjoying this or you're learning a lot, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you see these videos when they come out, especially if you're liking this and you're learning stuff, because as they do updates and other things, we'll make sure we do videos along with that and share the knowledge that I've learned to you guys so you don't have such of a learning curve. So just a quick reminder for that. But for the rest of the stims, these are ones, I don't use them a lot. Some people do. It's a personal preference thing, but we'll go through them so you know what they are. The L1 is not got a lot of use. It's one of the more useless stims, we'll put it that way. It does have a pain remove effect, so you can use it for that. And it does give you strength and stamina. So maybe if you're like low level, you find one of these and you don't want to vendor it because it sells for okay money. It's a lot more expensive than a Morphine or some of the other stuff. it can be used for that, but it's short acting, and you need one for the samples task for Peacekeepers. So if you found in raid one, you don't want to be using it up, but it doesn't have a lot of uses outside of that, simply because all it does is give you a little bit of strength and stamina, endurance, and then removes pain, but it's very short. It only lasts for 2 minutes. After that, we have the P22. This is kind of like a baby Meldonin, if you will. It still removes by 10% damage taken, but only lasts for 60 seconds. Now, it does give you stress resistance, health, and vitality, and it gives you a lot. They're plus 30. That's on the higher end of stims. But those skills just don't matter enough in fights, in my opinion, that it makes it super worthwhile. It is a lot cheaper. So if you don't want to run Meldonins, you can usually get these things for like 25, 30K. You pop one right before you go to push into a fight, maybe when you're fighting a boss or something, and give you that little bit of damage reduction to help out. Now the PNB falls in kind of like this too. It's a new patch, stim with patch 13. It does reduce damage to the head. It only lasts for 40 seconds, but it also removes concussion, which a lot of the stims doesn't work. I haven't tested this one, so I don't know if it actually does that. This is like when you get your bell rung from a helmet, and it adds three regeneration of health per second for 40 seconds. So that's 120 health. So there is a little bit extra there. And then it's got the plus 20 strength, but that's not going to do much to help you out in most circumstances anyways with where you would use this. But if you happen to have one because you found it in raid and you're screwed up, keep in mind the purple stim will give you a little bit of health. After that, we have the Morphine. This is probably one of the more common stims you'll see. I don't use it because I have other stuff. I pre-pain with golden stars or for my long duration pain pill. My emergency is just a Proptial, because while it doesn't act as long as the Morphine is 300 seconds of pain removal. The extra health regen is just worth it to me. But if you want to use Morphines, go for it. Just keep in mind that it does hit your energy and hydration right away, 10 and 15. So if you're using them, you're going to need that. And it is fast acting. So if you get shot, if you're in a firefight and you have this hotkeyed, you can get pain pilled really quick and get into cover. If you got a broken leg, whatever it is, these can work really well in that circumstance. It's just preference wise that I don't use it. And at 300 seconds, it lasts nearly as long as the golden star at 350. And I think a Vaseline, I'll go look here. It's right there with it. I think a Vaseline is 300 seconds. So yeah, it's essentially the same as a Vaseline. So for sure, if it's something you want to use, by all means do it. And the adrenaline kind of falls in with the Morphine. It's not widely used, but I do know people that use this as their hotkeyed pain med, not just because it removes pain for 60 seconds. So it's that real quick, get out of trouble kind of pain pill, but it does add 4 health per second for 15 seconds. So it's got a little bit of health regen. The recoil control is there. It's plus 10, but it isn't really meaningful to me. Some people swear by it, and that's mine. I'll fine by them. But for me, the recoil control just doesn't matter. It's not there. So if you're tight on money, you have a couple of these non-found in raid, they do serve as good hotkey pain meds if you want to use them, especially because they do give you that little boost to health regeneration. Now, the 3BTG, kind of a rare stim, kind of an expensive stim. It pushes that 30K, 35K, but this is a looter's stim. There's a lot of guys that'll use this in conjunction with an SJ6, especially people doing cash runs on like woods or shoreline. It lasts for 240 seconds, just like the SJ6 does. And with the extra stamina recovery and strength, you're able to run a little bit faster and a little bit further. So you can pretty much run from cache to cache to cache and never be out of stamina on your run. So that's where you'll see this frequently used as people doing loot runs, stuff like that, because it helps out with that SJ6. It's kind of like the Trimadol, not as effective, but it's a little bit cheaper and it lasts longer. So there's the benefits of that. Now, the SJ1's pretty straightforward and simple. It gives you a pretty good boost to strength, endurance, and stress resistance. But the only time I ever use this really is on factory. If I'm wearing really heavy kit, I've got like an Alton on, heavy armor, and I'm running like an Ash 12, which I do from time to time just for fun to run around on factory. This is when I'll use this stim, because that extra strength and endurance helps you get around, helps maintain your stamina, and things like that. Though it burns out pretty quick, it only lasts 3 minutes. It hurts your energy and hydration. So if those are the circumstances that I use it, if I'm heavy, that's where it comes into play, but it's a pretty small use case. Now, the Zagustin used to be a really popular stim, and it still kind of is, because it again, like the blue blood, it'll stop tons of bleeds, and it prevents bleeds for a full 3 minutes. Though that's not as important to me. I don't care about preventing bleeds all that much. At least I don't think I do. But it doesn't have the regenerative effect of the blue blood. That's why I don't use this anymore. But some people still do. Some people care about that, and if you do, by all means use it. It's still an okay stim. It's not super expensive. expensive. It runs anywhere from 30 to 40K most days. It'll get a little expensive from time to time, but it still has use. So if that's what you want in your secure container over the blue blood, by all means run that. Tied in with that is the AHF1M. Now this is, I would say this is essentially a useless stim. There's not a lot for it. So it does prevent bleeding. It stops and prevents bleeding just like the Zagustin, but it only lasts 60 seconds. It doesn't have the health regenerative blue blood. It's expensive. So before the blue blood came in, this was kind of everybody's budget Zagustin, because the Zagustins were a lot more expensive than they are now. That market's been split out a little bit, and it did have a use then as more of a budget Zagustin, but it's just not there anymore. And I don't really see a lot of use for it unless you find one in raid, you're a scav or you're a player and you have one and you get screwed up and you don't have any other stims, you can use it there. But aside from that, it's just kind of a cash stim. You get it out of raid, you sell it. Now the Odbolbos, I never say it right. The Odbolbos 2 cocktail injector. This is this new stim with patch 13, and it's kind of interesting. And it does have a lot more use than even the Odbolbos original stim does, because what it does is it acts like kind of like a mule. It reduces your weight, but it gives you max stamina. It gives you stamina recovery. It regens health versus take it away like the mule, and it gives you endurance and strength along with attention and perception. So probably the most common place I've seen this is people that are looting Lighthouse, the new Lighthouse. They get their little transmitter, they run out there, they hit this because it helps them run around quicker. It lasts for a long time. The additional attention and perception can help with looting a little bit, but the strength and endurance helps them move quicker, carry more loot, not just with the weight limit. And then they can make it all the way back off the island with this stim, and not because you don't have to worry about fighting people out there, because you're not supposed to. I guess you could, but you're not going to run into anything out there that's going to shoot you unless you screw up or there's a bug. And if you wait till the end of the raid, usually people are not going to sit there and look for you or wait for you for like 4 minutes left in the raid. So there's a use case there for waiting towards the end of the raid to pop it and then running out. So that's where I see it used the most, but you could use this in other loot situations like running caches, things like that. Just keep in mind that 80% increase to damage taken is going to make you brittle. You're going to be very easy to kill with this. Now we'll kind of jump. I want to, just because the Odbolbos and the Odbolbos 2 put them together and talk about it. This stim doesn't have a lot of use cases. It does give you a ton of bonuses, but it has some negative things as well. It lasts forever, and you have these 25% chances for some of these really shitty debuffs. Now, the only use case that I have really found for this, besides you're about to die anyways and you want to pop the stim for shits and giggles, or special events where they do special stats on them, is to level up immunity. This is a good way to level immunity, because immunity levels based on debuff duration. So the longer a debuff, the more points you get. The downside is that debuff has to wear off. So if you get killed before the debuff wears off, you don't get any points for it. So if you have high confidence that you're going to survive your raid, you want to hit this, you can hit that, get the debuffs, and then that'll level your immunity. But that's about really the only place I ever see this super useful. The SJ9, also another kind of rare use case stim, super rare. And you need 2 of these found in raid for Lightkeeper quests. So if you find them found in raid and you're planning on doing that, make sure you hang on to them. Otherwise, what they do is they're kind of the anti-thermal stim. They reduce your body temperature by -7. And we'll do some testing to show you guys some B-roll here as I'm talking. But as you can see, it does make you harder to see, but not impossible. Thermals are still going to see you. You don't end up like a cultist where it's near impossible to see you, though it's a little bit more covered up, I guess, and harder to identify exactly where to shoot at a distance. But it does come with some debuffs, and again, it's super expensive. Very specific use case, because how do you know the guy you're fighting has a thermal necessarily? You don't, except for some circumstances you might have a good idea. I have never really used one of these in a fight, but they're there. Just to point it out, it's there. The SJ12 was added with patch 13. It's kind of like the SJ9, but instead of -7, it only does -4 degrees. But it does add energy and hydration recovery. Now, these are kind of pricey for that, but I do know people that'll keep these in their secure container, because if you get a black stomach, you get screwed up, and you run out of food, you can't find food, you can hit this, and it will actually help your energy and hydration for a full 10 minutes, which can be helpful to get you out of raid, get you to find some food, and you're not without energy and hydration, which can happen. So that's there just to point out. It also does give you a huge perception buff for 10 minutes, but again, kind of an expensive stim just for that small limited use case. And then the last one we have here is the XTG, also a very specific use case. It removes it's an antidote. So it removes the poison from cultist knives right now. It's the only thing in the game that does that. So if you're fighting cultists, great stim to have on you, although the blue blood has the same stat and it's quite a bit cheaper. The XTG runs anywhere from 90 to 100K. You get them off of cultists. You can craft them once you get a task done. The task that is for skier, or it's like night sweep or something like that. You kill all these, it'll unlock the craft for you to be able to craft them in your med station. But it will stop the poison. Just keep in mind it's got a delay of 6 seconds. Lasts for 60 seconds, so if they stab you again, I guess they won't poison you, though. I don't know that I've ever been stabbed multiple times by cultists and not just been shot. So it's there. That's what it's there for, so you know. Now, I have to imagine if you've made it this far in the video, you liked it, so do me a favor, hit that like button, show me that you did, or not, I guess, if you don't. But I can't imagine you still hung around this long if you didn't like the video. But we'll wrap her up there. Appreciate you guys hanging out and watching this video with me. Hope it added a bunch of value. Wish you the best of luck in your raids, and we'll see you in Tarkov.